All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of A Stark Realization. I am your host, Bradley W. Skinner. And with me today, I have the distinct pleasure of being joined by two of my current students. So in some of our past podcasts, you know that we've had some former students that have been on as guests of the show. But today, because of the topic, and since we're discussing elements directly related to education in the moment, in the now, I have two of my students with me. I've got Alyssa here and Kyle. They're going to be joining us. Go ahead and say hi, everybody.
Hi, I'm Kyle. I'm a junior.
I'm Alyssa. I'm a junior as well.
So two of my juniors here, and the reason that we wanted them on the show is we're going to be talking today specifically about how the educational world has changed here in this pre and post-COVID life that we are all currently living. So I'm going to be asking them some questions to get an actual viewpoint, because we've obviously during this time, we've interviewed a lot of teachers, both on this show as well as especially over on our web series of the Empower Half Hour with Darren Peppard and Frank Rudneski. We've interviewed hundreds of educators, and we've talked about what they've been dealing with. But we want to change that and switch gears a little bit and actually talk to the students. They're the ones that are living it. They're in the middle of it. And we haven't taken a lot of opportunity to actually ask students what it's like for them. We focus a lot on teachers. We focused on, on other adults. So let's get into asking the students what it's been like for them. So Kyle, we're going to start over with you. What has been some of the, if we're going to talk, let's start with challenges. What's been the biggest challenge these past 2 years in dealing with being a student during the middle of a pandemic?
I haven't been quarantined yet, but I think that would be probably the hardest part about it, is trying to get caught up on all your schoolwork, trying to maintain that while you're at home and not able to be at school and learning.
Now, both of you had to deal with that terrible,
2 months.
March, April of, and May of 2020, when everybody was at home and we had that distance learning. What was that like for you as a student? Alyssa, you want to take that one?
It was kind of hard to keep up with schoolwork and know what we're doing in all of my classes, because some of the teachers wouldn't post everything.
Good point. Kyle, what frustrated you the most about that situation?
The hardest thing I think was, like he said, just kind of like keeping up with everything, being able to, because there's a lot of things that it seemed like they wanted you to do, but you just didn't know how to do it. Especially math was hard, because personally I'm a in-person learner, and it's hard to do that when I'm at home and I can't actually be taught in a classroom.
I know I struggled with that as an educator, being one, especially with theater, and well, even here with our journalism class, it's a hands-on environment. We're creating, we're doing things. And so not having that connection with the students right there made it really, really difficult. Like, how do you teach theater when the kids aren't there performing? So I know I struggled with that quite a bit. And those one things I think we had to remember was we've got to take the students' viewpoint into account. If we're not, then what are we doing? Was there anything that you actually did enjoy about that? Was there, if you were to say, I'm going to find the one positive, what could you say was a positive that you gained from that time where we were doing the distance learning?
I would probably say, because it didn't really put too much work on us during that time, because I think that most teachers were understanding that we're at home. It's hard for us to learn. So once you did get your work done, you could just do what you wanted to do. You were home. You could go out and go hang out with your friends once you got your work done. So it wasn't like the work took you all 7 hours like a normal school day would. So,
okay, excellent point.
I enjoyed getting to sleep in and then stay in your pajamas while doing schoolwork.
Was that problematic, though, for some of the classes that you had, or did that work for both of you okay?
I actually never had a Zoom class that whole time.
So what did you do?
My teachers, they just assigned assignments on Google Classroom, and I did them from there, but I never had to get ready for a Zoom call or anything like that.
I will say, as a teacher, there were a couple times where I did have to remind students to make sure you're fully clothed before you turn on your Zoom meeting. We don't want to be seeing that. Kids just like still laying in bed, and so their camera's sideways, and they're just like, "Hey, what's up, Skinner?" I'm like, "Dude, come on, bro, get up. You can't just be laying in bed during class." So I could see why some teachers chose, hey, I'm not going to do the meetings because there were some problematic elements to it. I get that. For me, I struggled a lot in just simply in not seeing kids. So I did Zoom meetings every day. I was always having my classes on, and I wanted kids to turn on their cameras. And I know sometimes that it was easy to say, I'm not going to turn on my camera. But that was tough for me because not seeing faces, not seeing, even if it was like, hey, am I getting a head nod that they understand? Am I seeing them raise their hand for a question? Am I seeing some sort of recognition with the learning taking place? And not seeing that was really difficult. I struggled with that quite a bit. So how about this year? How are things going this year now compared to last year?
Obviously, I think there's more quarantines than there were last year. We're not wearing our masks like we were last year, but I definitely do enjoy not having to wear the mask. But
I agree.
there's a lot more quarantines this year than there were last year, I feel.
Okay. Do you expect that we're going to have some changes in our school days, or you think we're going to end
I
up
don't want
going
to
back
jinx
to
it,
that?
but probably.
Okay. What have you noticed that's been different from this year from last year?
I personally like to be able to see someone talking, and so last year with the masks, it would be really hard to hear everyone. And then this year, some of the teachers don't wear their masks, so it's easier to hear them.
That's good. And of course, you have a unique situation that other students don't. But I could see how that definitely would impact the learning opportunities. So that's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. And I think that's one thing that we tend to, when it comes to education, where obviously we're filling in and we're trying to do more for students, but we're usually focused on those that fit into that majority. And I think that I know personally for myself, there were several students that I didn't think about at first that might have difficulty accessing technology, not being able to see, being able to hear. And I realized that was an error on my part, that I wasn't being as conscious towards some of the minority within those groups because I was so focused on trying to make sure I was adjusting and adapting to accommodate the majorities. And I could see where that could really be difficult in helping students access their learning and to keep them updated with their learning. So I learned a great deal from that last year of realizing that I had a lot of blind spots when it came to what I was doing in my classes, and that I needed to do a better job of addressing that. So that would be the positive that I found from it, is, realizing that there were things that I was missing as a teacher and that I needed to do better. What are your hopes for this year? What are you hoping that we are able to do, or that you're expecting to get out of?
I just hope that they keep sports and school going on. If that means that we have to put on masks, it is what it is. But my main thing is I want to stay in school, and I want to have the sports continue. And
obviously, and this is something that we've said so many times on some of my other shows, is that our reality here in Wyoming is not other people's reality. And anyone, if you're listening, you have to understand that. And I'm pleading with you to listen as I say that our reality is not the same as others' reality. And what we mean, and what I mean by that when I say it, is last year we were able to, as the majority of schools in Wyoming were able to accomplish, is that we had face-to-face instruction all of last year. We had kids in the building. They were in our classrooms. Yes, we were masked, but we were seeing students on a daily basis, where we know that, and educators that I've met with from all over the country didn't have that luxury. They were distance learning the entire year. I had several friends from California that the first time that they saw their students face-to-face in the classroom was March. So they had gone almost the entire school year before they finally actually had face-to-face instruction. So I think we're incredibly blessed in what we've been able to do, being able to have productions on our stages, having choir concerts, band concerts, having sports, activities, athletics, where other states and other school districts weren't able to have those things. So yes, I recognize that what we have here that other people don't. And I hope that we're able to keep that. I want to be able to have those opportunities because those are important for kids. Students need to have that outlet. And I think if we take away those things, we're greatly doing a disservice to our students. So, Alyssa, what are you hoping for this year?
I'm hoping that we can just make sure everyone stays as healthy as possible.
It's a pretty good thing to be hoping for. one of the things I also like to do is we kind of will, and we do this over on the Empower Half Hour. So I want to try it here today. Is we're going to end with a final thought. So if there's something that you would like to say or share, what would that be? Okay, so think about that for a minute because I'll go ahead and answer that. For me, I'm going to say my final thoughts today, and Kyle addressed it a little bit with the willingness to do what's necessary to keep things continuing. I hate wearing masks. Last year was even more difficult because I had, I'm not sure if you guys remember, I had that huge full beard that I had grown the entire school year. And so wearing a mask was just awful, but I hated shaving too because it was just as discomforting with the mask anyway. But I was willing to do that because I knew it was going to allow opportunities to keep our activities and our sports going. So that's the thing that I would say is I don't care what it is. If they say that I need to wear a mask, awesome. If I have to teach in a tiny plexiglass cubicle at the front of my classroom, that's what I'll do. I'll do whatever I have to do to keep students in my classroom and in front of us and not go back to that distance learning because I did not do well with that at all. So that's my last thought. Alyssa?
I think we should just be making sure that we're staying healthy and washing our hands and all of that so that we can keep school and sports and all of that going.
Yep. Use your sanitizer. Hand sanitizer, in case you didn't catch that. Just shortening a little bit, trying to make it easier for you. All right, Kyle, what you got for us?
Pretty much the exact same thing you said, just really doing what is necessary. Because same as you, the distance learning was very, very hard for me. I'm a very, very in-person learner. So when I couldn't see the teacher doing it in front of me and actually have a conversation about it, and I wasn't really able to ask questions, it made it hard for me to learn.
All right, before we go, we do want to jump in a couple of our comments here. We've got one from Julie. Let's go ahead and bring that up on the board there. Awesome. Julie, thanks so much. Julie, I love hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in. So again, we're actually filming this right now as a tutorial for my students. This is our yearbook journalism class. And so we've got a group of students that are seen all around us that you probably can't see because we try to keep the cameras just on the ones that have signed the paperwork that says they can. But as Julie says, staying in community is so important. I'm so glad your students see that. So awesome. Thank you, Julie, for that. And as well, we had another comment from Lib. I would also much rather wear a mask than learn at home as well. That's a great thing. And I think most of our students, I would say that predominantly, our student body is willing to do that. They're willing to do what's necessary to make that happen. And I think that's a positive because sometimes we're seeing that certain restrictions are put on for activities or for sports. Sometimes it's from the coaches. The coaches are saying, hey, we want to preserve our season. We want this to happen. So we're going to ask you to do this. It's not mandated. It's not being required. It's just saying, hey, let's do what's necessary so we can make sure that we preserve the best, that we're able to do. And I think that's great. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I obviously have to thank my guest, Alyssa and Kyle. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us today. And for those of you that were able to tune in, thanks so much for watching us here and listening. If you're just listening on the podcast, to A Stark Realization. And we'll see you next time.